you could take all the alcohol I've ever drank and it wouldn't fill up with them. I've never done a drug. I've never done an illicit drug. I've never smoked a joint. I've never smoked a cigarette. I took one puff of a cigar. My son insisted that when we closed on the farm, we each smoke a cigar. And I took one puff of a cigar, and my wife caught it on camera. I've taken one puff and emptied my wife, and my wife has immortalized it, and she'll have it there. My memorial service, me with a cigar in my hand, blowing smoke. And by the way, I threw it in the burn pile as soon as I took the one puff. I'm just one girl away from being a virgin. I mean, there's not a whole lot of stuff I've done in my life that you could say, well, that must be he's lived by the pleasure principle. I don't know that much about alcohol or drugs or women or anything else. And that's not an Aaron thing, that's a God thing. But Solomon speaks. If you're looking for the opposite of Aaron, look at Solomon. He was a man of incredible God-given wisdom. He was also a man of unparalleled wealth and political, military, legal authority. There was no way that Solomon could do anything wrong. Solomon was a law unto himself. Solomon saw a beautiful woman, he'd take her as his wife or his concubine. Solomon saw land that he wanted, well, it was already his. Solomon had it all. He knew everything. He was brilliant. He was wise. He inherited a kingdom that was united. After him, it divided. In his court, every day, they had to prepare 13,000 meals to feed all the people that was in part of his entourage. We're talking about an enormous burden on the people, a tax burden, and that's another lesson another time. But in the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon sets his mind, his heart, his purpose on exploring everything that would give pleasure. Everything. I think I can scream over it. In Ecclesiastes chapter 2, it says, this is Solomon speaking first person. I said to myself, go ahead and I will test you with pleasure and enjoy what is good, but it turned out to be futile. I said about laughter, it is madness, and about pleasure, what does this accomplish? I explored with my mind how to let my body enjoy life with wine and how to grasp folly with my mind, still guiding me with wisdom, until I could see what is good for people to do under heaven during the few days of their lives. Now, I want you to listen to the first person pronouns that I'm about to read. I increased my achievements. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made gardens and parks for myself and planted every kind of fruit tree in them. I constructed reservoirs of water for myself from which to irrigate groves of flourishing trees. I acquired male and female servants and had slaves who were born in my household. I also owned many herds of cattle and flocks, more than all who had gone before me in Jerusalem. I also amassed silver and gold for myself, and the treasure of kings and provinces I gathered male and female singers for myself, and many concubines, the delight of men. Thus I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. My wisdom also remained with me. All that my eyes desired, I did not deny them. I did not refuse myself any pleasure, for I took pleasure in all my struggles. This was my reward for all my struggles. When I considered all that I had accomplished and what I had labored to achieve, I found everything to be futile in the pursuit of the wind. There was nothing to be gained under the sun. If you read the book of Ecclesiastes, you'll find that Solomon devoted himself in a portion of his life to amassing stuff, to amassing wisdom, to amassing pleasure, to amassing specific sexual pleasure. Solomon could taste everything. Now, we have recovery ministry at church. And I think every church should have a recovery ministry. And Jim Elliott's the one who brought the recovery ministry to our area, by the way. But every week, someone will share a testimony of their pilgrimage from sobriety into addiction and sobriety. That seems to be the recurring theme from everyone. I was sober, I fell into addiction, and this is how I've been clean. Over and over and over. So if you want to hear somebody speak about the struggles of addiction, talk to an addict. You want to talk to somebody who knows the pitfalls of pleasure, you better listen to Solomon. God let Solomon go to the very brink of self-destruction, yet retained his wisdom, and he came back. And he wrote this landmark book in the Bible that receives almost no airtime from the pulpit. And he's got such incredible brilliance, if we can understand that he's speaking from a position of authority. Now, if Nick Saban held a coaching clinic, a free coaching clinic, Sunday morning at 11 o'clock, there's not a room in Marshall County big enough to hold everybody that would be there. If they charge no admission, Nick Saban's going to talk about coaching. Or if Jeff Bezos is going to talk about the next trend in marketing online, you could probably fill up any room in Marshall County with people who would come to hear them say that. And here we've got somebody who was wealthier than anybody in history, who was wiser than anyone in history, who had the legal ability to do anything, excuse me, he wanted to do, pardon me. And he speaks to us. He speaks through us from just before addiction, just before self-destruction. He comes back from the edge and he writes this powerful letter. And forgive me, Donald Trump might send me out of the room. Never mind. There are forgive me, there are principles or questions, I think, that we need to ask ourselves when it comes to pleasure. Now, the first thing we've got to understand, that most of everything that we gear ourselves toward is pleasure. If it's not the pursuit of pleasure, then it's the avoidance of pain, which is kind of one and the same. Well, the problem with pleasure comes in, if we can ask ourselves these three questions. The first one is, does it impede my progress toward my goal? Does it interfere with my goal in life? Now then, that is built on the assumption or presumption that you have a goal in life. Most of us have some kind of goal. We may have never written them down. J.C. Penney once said, give me a stock clerk who's written his goals and I'll give you a future CEO. Give me a CEO who's never written his goals and I'll give you a future stock clerk. And I believe in the power of writing something down, committing it maybe to memory, but writing down what it is that you want to accomplish in life. And I think that you can push it even to day by day by day. I don't do that. But, excuse me, what is your goal in life? If we look back in the Mosaic Law, 613 laws. In these 613 laws, Moses says this is how you're supposed to live. These are the parameters, these are the buffers that keep you in a godly position in your life. Don't do these things, or do these things. 613. We fast forward to the New Testament and we see a lawyer asking Jesus about the greatest commandment, and Jesus reduces 613 laws to 2. I can remember 2 laws. 613 I can't. 2 laws. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second is likened to it, love your neighbors yourself. And then Jesus said, on these 2 hinge all the other commandments. What's your goal in life? What's your goal in life? What's your purpose in life? You've heard me for 6 years now talk about the fact that the Holy Spirit blesses us with spiritual gifts. And these spiritual gifts are to be used for the purpose of edifying the body, building up the body. Everyone in this room is gifted differently. We're skewed to the right with accountants over here on this side. And I'm so glad that God gifted you guys that way. He didn't gift me that way. He gifted me in different ways. I'm much more like Marston.
Be careful.
I'm much more like Marston than I am an accountant. My personality is just different. I think if I had to sit before a computer screen or use a calculator, I don't think I could do it. But some people are gifted to do that. We're not gifted unequally. We're gifted differently, diversely. And God gives each one of us. In the scheme of things, there's no greater or lesser gifts. Really, in 1 Corinthians, it talks about the greater gifts being the gifts of prophecy. But it takes every part in an engine to work. Take one part out, it doesn't work. Every part of this watch is required for it to work. You can't say one's more important than the other because it takes all of them. And that's the way it is in the body. But God gives us the blessing of purpose in our life. Now, our highest purpose is to know Him in an act of worship, to have a relationship with Him, to have an intimate relationship with Him so that we can worship whether we're in the midst of pleasure or in the midst of pain. God's purpose is to bring us into a relationship with Him. But unfortunately, we've got this idea all messed up in America that the purpose in life is to gain pleasure. Now, if you'll think about it, it kind of gets that simple. Well, why are you working? To get money. What for? To get pleasure. Well, why are you doing these things to get pleasure? We raise our children, make good grades, go to a good school, get a good degree, get a good job so you can have a lot of money for what for? To buy pleasure. Pleasure is the principle that seems to drive our entire nation. And the truth is, we are all woven into the fabric of society, and it's not all about us. It's not all about you. It's about how I fulfill what God has gifted me to do. In the book of Ephesians, the last part of chapter 2, it says that we're created, I've quoted this up here several times, created for the purpose of good works which God set out beforehand, before you were even born. God created opportunities that would avail themselves to you for you to use the gifts that God would one day give you at salvation. Isn't that beautiful? That we're created with purpose. But many of us buy into a Howard Sprague idea of purpose. Remember Howard Sprague? Howard Sprague was the clerk?
He's a
county clerk. He hears about this island somewhere that he's got enough money he can retire. And he can go to this island, Utopia, that he will never have to work again in his life. So he moves, and everybody, Mayberry says goodbye, and then Howard's on this beautiful island wearing this silly Hawaiian outfit and in a hammock, and he got old in a hurry. And some of us have this idea that our retirement, or this point of pleasure, is the place where we avoid all responsibility in life, and we find this secluded little island paradise, and there we play golf or swing in a hammock or whatever it is. I can't imagine a life in which I wasn't woven into the fabric of other lives. I can't imagine. I said this about my brother, Dan and Kay, both of them, when they were in Alaska. I said, they could die and no one would know it for weeks. Weeks. If you died today, how long would it be before somebody noticed you were gone? It's a tragedy to think that that's exactly what most of us are working for. We want to get to the place where we're not involved with anything else, anything bigger than us, that we just become Freud, id, ego, and superego. We're just going to be our little id. We're just going to feed ourselves everything we want. I told somebody the other day when I retired, I was going to sell my farm and eat it. I'm just going to eat. That's all I want to do in retirement. But God blesses us with a point. I believe there's a tipping point in life, and I'm looking for that tipping point where I have to earn an income to live. But in life, we're going to get to the place that we don't have to earn an income anymore, and at that moment, most of us see it as retirement. That's the very tipping point where God can use all of our time, everything we've got. Not just Sundays, not just Wednesday night, not just the tip of life, but all of life. The problem with pleasure is it appeals to our emotion. We like it. We want it. Now, I've told you before that there's a process of philosophy, how we develop a philosophy of life, how we react to anything. It begins with logic. If it's logical, then we get emotional about it. If we're emotional enough about it, we'll take an action about it. But what pleasure does is it bypasses logic and it appeals directly to the emotion. It doesn't make sense. You probably don't have to think very hard to think about people that have ruined their lives because they acted on an emotion and not logic. Men who are my age and a little younger, I guess, they are famous for throwing their lives away over something completely illogical because it was emotion that led to a pleasure. Now then, I'll try to come back to that in just a minute. First one is, does it hinder my goal? The second one, does it take away anybody else's right? Does my pleasure take away anyone else's God-given right? I don't want to make anybody mad, but if you'll think about the process it took to get a diamond on your hand, it cost somebody somewhere dearly. just do a little research about where diamonds come from and who makes the money from the diamonds and the diamond mines and where they are and who worked the mine. Does it take away anybody's God-given right? In the book of Kings, King Saul is pursuing David. David's hiding in the cave of Adullam. He's surrounded by 400 ne'er-do-wells, and he's looking out over the vast valley in front of him, and the Jordan River's flowing right down there. And he says, if I could just have a drink of water from the spring in my hometown of Bethlehem. Well, he had these mighty men. These mighty men. When I get to heaven, I want to meet the mighty men. These three mighty men, they huddled over the corner. Let's go get them. So they left the security of the cave. They went through enemy lines, traveled all the way to Bethlehem at night, at the risk of their lives. They got a jar of water from the spring in David's hometown, and they bring it back to him. And King David says, what's this? Well, he wasn't king yet. David says, what's this? He said, well, that's some water from Bethlehem. He was so moved that these men were willing to risk their lives for him, a moment of pleasure, that he couldn't drink it. Instead of drinking it, he poured it out as a drink offering, a sacrifice, because these men were willing to risk their lives for something for him. I like to drive fast. Not like I used to, but I like to drive. I've driven 135 miles an hour on the Autobahn. I like it. But you know, you try that here on 431, you get rear-ended. Here on 431. Here on Highway 431, you know, that we've got limits. Those limits are not to punish you, but to protect you. Not only protect you, but protect somebody else. You have the right to drink. That's between you and the Lord. You have the right to drink and drive? No. Nobody has that right. Well, it's a free country, isn't it? But you don't have the right to put someone else's life in danger satisfying your pleasure. It's a very simple principle. And the final one is it too much of a good thing? 3 questions. Does it impede my goal in life? Does it impede somebody else's God-given right? And the third one, is it too much of a good thing? In Proverbs, there's a passage in chapter 25, I think, that says, when you find honey, be careful not to eat too much, or you'll vomit. Too much of a good thing? Yeah. Ask Solomon. His heavy taxation on the country eventually split the kingdom. Supporting all of his wives and concubines, the delight of men, he says in this passage. The tax burden became so heavy that people couldn't afford it anymore. The kingdom was divided after him. Now, the Bible says that in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, better is a house of mourning than a house of sorrow. How can that possibly be? Isn't that opposite to everything else we're pursuing in life? How can a house of mourning be better than a house of pleasure? I've learned more about who I am and about who God is in my brokenness than I ever have my pleasure. I have forgotten thousands of people with whom I've laughed, but I've never forgotten a soul with whom I've wept. Better is a house of mourning than a house of pleasure. When we begin to pursue pleasure as the objective in life instead of a goal of honoring God in our lives, is God not worried about our happiness? Absolutely. Look at what He's given us for our happiness. Look around. It's almost football season in Alabama. He gave us football. And we prostitute it. We get its value out of place. And in fact, I did a funeral just this past Wednesday at Joe Boyd Vineyards. And burned in we had a great funeral. We laughed the whole time. At Joe's expense, but he'd want it that way. I had Dr. Level, President of Seminary in New Orleans, do a revival when I was in Guntersville. And Joe Boyd was a huge Auburn fan. And when he came up, Dr. Level, the first time he met him, he stuck his hand out and he said, I'm Joe Boyd Vineyard. I'm a member of First Baptist Church, but I worship Auburn football. Dr. Level said, good. When you're in the hospital next time, call Terry Bowden, get him to come visit you. And go, one of those priceless moments in life that I always cherish. We worship a lot of things, and we dedicate our lives to a lot of things. And Solomon says, everything under the sun is futile. Everything under the sun is futile. Everything is vanity, chasing after the wind, vapors, that's what he calls it. But he excludes everything above the sun. You see, this is not my home. And if you catch it, I saw a thing on social media yesterday. Some folks at the Gulf, they caught a baby dolphin somehow. And they're passing the baby dolphin around, having pictures made with the dolphin, and the dolphin dies.
Oh.
And of course, everybody's furious then. Well, that's my wife. This world's not my home. A dolphin wasn't created to be handled by everybody and live outside the water. The dolphin was created to be in the ocean, created to be in his own environment. This is not my home. I want to give you probably the most significant thing about pleasure I could possibly hand you. And this actually came from Ravi Zacharias. All pleasure is purchased at the price of pain. Now, I've thought about this for probably a year, and I've never found a circumstance in which that's wrong. All pleasure is purchased at the price of pain. I could justify a new truck. Well, a new truck costs, to meet my need, what I think my needs are, is $40,000 for a new truck. Well, that's pleasure. You go, the pleasure, you buy the truck. But the pain is you got to pay for it. The pain is you earned it beforehand, or the pain is you've got payments from now on till you die. But all pleasure is purchased at the price of pain. Godly pleasure is paid for in advance. It's always paid for in advance. My salvation, paid for in advance. My relationship with Him, the sacrifices that I make to get into the proper relationship with Him, I pay beforehand. All godless pleasure is paid for after pleasure. Think about that. One of us have an affair with somebody, or we've had that momentary pleasure, but I'll promise you, you're going to pay for it. It'll cost you marriage, it'll cost you trust, it'll cost you relationship, it may cost you financially, it may cost you a lot of different ways. C.S. Lewis says that pain is God's megaphone. C.S. Lewis said, God whispers to us in pleasure, but He screams to us in our pain. It's through our own pain, and it may be physical pain, emotional pain, financial pain, any kind of pain. In those times of the lack of pleasure, God speaks. And in the seasons of lack of pleasure, our ears are more in tune to hear the voice of God. Remember, godly pleasure is always paid beforehand, while sensual pleasure is always paid after. John Charles Wesley's mother said this, and I can find the quote, and you can look it up. I don't have the whole quote. But John Charles once asked her about what was permissible in life, what's okay for me to do. Where's that line between that pleasure's okay? And it's a beautiful quote. It's a whole paragraph. But at the heart of it, she just says simply, and this is nearly a quote, but not exactly, anything that causes the flesh to be stronger than the spirit is sin. Lord, I'd ask that you show us the ways in